Okay, so today we are going to start our unit on JavaScript. So in the first course, we did talk a little bit about JavaScript. We didn't really do any JavaScript from scratch, okay? In this course, you're going to be required to understand the JavaScript more so that you could make things from scratch, not just replace pieces of the script to make changes to what you're trying to do. So let's go ahead and take a look. Today we're just going to get started by looking at what JavaScript can do, and it's going to be kind of like the first year where you just change out the pieces, and then after that we'll get a little more in depth. So day one, what is JavaScript? And we're really just looking at what it is and what it can, some of the things it can do. So JavaScript is a language used by web developers to make pages interactive. We can use JavaScript to change the content that's on the page. We can use it to change the HTML attribute values. For example, we can change the picture that is displayed. So if there's an image, you want to change it out for a different image, we can change the SRC. You can change the CSS styles. You can change the colors, the fonts, the background colors, the border, all of those things from CSS. You can use it to hide or show elements. So you could have it hidden for one type of thing that's happening and then show it for something else. You can also use JavaScript to make computations. So we are going to look at some examples here in a second, but one of the common HTML methods is getElementById, and it's not the only method, but it is the one that we're going to use today, okay? Because again, it's one of the most common methods. This method will find an element on the page by its ID, and then you can change it. So you could change, again, you can change the CSS, you can change the content for that element, you can change the attributes for that element, so we can do a lot. So for example, we're going to look at a bunch of examples right now. So I'm going to open and run lesson 1 examples, and you're going to kind of see both of these things running together. One side note, I use double and single quotes in my examples to help keep track of them, because sometimes you will end up with quotes inside quotes, but it doesn't matter. You could use double or single for most instances. So let's take a look. Alright, so here is the Notepad++ HTML code, and then this is what the page looks like. I didn't format very much about it. It's just trying to show you how we could do some things. So we've got our doc type declaration, the HTML, body. Okay, so example 1. We're going to change the content of the page. So here's a paragraph with an ID of example 1. Shows up over here. JavaScript can change HTML content. And then right below that I have a button. Okay, so it is a button type. It's not like submit or reset. It's just a button, which means to say what we want to do. And then on click, this button is going to use the document.getElementById method to get the element that has ID example 1, so this element right up here, okay? And then we use this inner HTML. So inner HTML, that just changes whatever's between the opening and closing tag. So between this paragraph opening tag and closing tag, we are going to change it to whatever this is. And I made it say hello JavaScript. And then this is all in the opening tag of the button. Now we have what the button's going to have written on it, and then the closing tag for the button. So if I click on click me, it should change to say hello JavaScript. Okay, so that is one thing that we can do. We can change the inner HTML, or the HTML between the opening and closing tags. Example 2, we are going to change an attribute. Okay, so in this case we are going to change the source of the attribute image. So I'm going to change what this picture looks like. Okay, so if you look, we've got a button, it's this button, and then we have the image, and then we have the other button. Okay, so scroll a little bit so we can see all that. There we go. Alright, so if I click the first button, okay, so again, button on click, document.getElementById, so again, I'm getting this element, I'm choosing it by its ID, example 2, so right here. And then dot src means we're going to change the source, so equals, and then I have my nice lion picture saved in the folder called images. Okay, and then closing tag for the button opening tag, or closing brace, okay? And then we have I'm a nice lion, that's what it says, and then the closing tag. If I click on it, it doesn't change. Why? Because I have it set up so that the first one, the image, is starting out as a nice lion, okay? But it'll go back and forth in a second when we click. The second button is going to do very similar. It's going to go get that element by ID, okay? And then it's going to change the source though to roar lion, okay? So if I click on this, it should be a roar lion, and then I can go back to the nice lion and the roar lion and the nice lion and the roar lion, okay? This right here just said what image we were starting with, okay? Then we've got example 3. So in example 3, we're going to change the style of an HTML element. So all the CSS styles, we can change those. So again, I used a button on click. I'm going to get the element with ID of example 3, and I am going to then change the style. So instead of dot source, it's dot style, and then dot color, because I need to say what it is that I'm changing about this style. And then I'm going to change the color to blue. I click on the button, that just turned blue. Alright, example 4, we can hide and show elements. Ooh. There we go. So again, we need the ID for the element. So I'm going to hide and show this element right here. I can be hidden or shown. Okay, and I'll do that by clicking on these buttons. So the first button, I need to get the element by ID, and then it's dot style, which you might not be thinking, but like, remember, styles have displays, and if you display none, it's not going to, that's the style to not display anything, okay, so it'll be hidden. And then the other displays, you can do block, inline block, but we're just going to put it back to being block because it's a paragraph, which is a block element to start. So if I click on this, it goes away, and I click on it again, it's back, goes away, goes back. So you'll notice that all of these I did on click. You don't have to make a button to have JavaScript run. You can mouse over something. You can just click an HTML element. You don't have to click a button. There's a lot of different ways or events that you can do to have the HTML or the JavaScript run. It could just run when the page loads, okay? But I chose for all these clicks so that you could see it happen when I explained it, okay? And we'll learn about those later. So the rest of today, you are going to complete JavaScript Practice 1, which again is just kind of set up for you to go in and just play around and get a basic understanding, refresh your memory from the first course. So you're going to be starting with a lot of the information and code for you, and then we'll move away from that as we progress here.